My brothers and sisters, sometimes it's not the big moments that test our sincerity. It's the small ones, the silent ones, the moments where no one sees us, but Allah is watching. Imagine you're standing in prayer, connecting with your Lord, and suddenly you feel it. You know your wudu is broken. What do? Do you continue for the sake of appearances or pause for the sake of your Creator? This isn't just about a physical action. It's a test of your heart, your honesty, your submission. Today, we're going to talk about one of those real life moments that so many experience but few talk about. A moment that may seem awkward, yet it carries the weight of deep sincerity, hidden faith, and true obedience to Allah. So stay with me till the very end of this talk, not because it's a lecture, but because it might just change the way you look at worship, purity, and how you stand in front of the Lord of the worlds. What you'll hear today could be the reminder your heart needed, one that brings ease, clarity, and confidence in your journey with Allah. In Islam, the state of wudu or ablution is a condition for the validity of Salah or prayer. Without it, the prayer is not accepted. One of the well-known things that break wudu is passing wind. This is clearly mentioned in the authentic hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, who said, the prayer of none amongst you would be accepted if he breaks wind, unless he performs ablution again. This shows the importance of maintaining purity while engaging in such a sacred act as Salah. Islam places a great emphasis on cleanliness, both physically and spiritually. It is not just a physical act of washing parts of the body, but a spiritual preparation to stand before Allah. When a person knowingly passes wind during prayer and continues praying without renewing their wudu, the prayer becomes invalid. It is as though the person is standing without permission in front of the King of all kings. This act, though it may seem small to some, reflects disobedience to a clear instruction of the Prophet. Scholars of Islam agree that knowingly praying in a state of impurity is not acceptable and must be repeated. This is why a person must be conscious of their condition during prayer. If there is doubt about where the wind was passed, the Prophet instructed not to break the prayer unless one hears a sound or smells something. But if it is certain, then there is no excuse to continue. It is better to stop, purify oneself, and return to prayer with full consciousness and respect. The dignity of Salah is too high to be taken lightly. It is the moment a slave stands before his master, and it must be done in the state Allah has commanded, beginning with the purity of wudu. In Islam, sincerity is the foundation of every act of worship. The prayer is not just a series of movements. It is a direct conversation between the slave and his Lord. When a person knows that their wudu has been broken, but still continues to pray, they are not being honest in that conversation. It may seem like no one around knows, but Allah knows. This act, though outwardly complete, is spiritually empty because it lacks the condition of purity. Islam teaches that actions are judged by intentions, but also by adherence to rules set by Allah and His Messenger. To knowingly continue in prayer without karhas and wudu, that's not just a ritual mistake. It reflects a deeper problem in ajr. It is the reflection of creating a world that cannot find the salvation, sincerity. The person may be worried about what others think if they leave the prayer, but Allah tests us with these very moments. Will you care more about pleasing people or pleasing your Creator? This is a private test between you and Him. If you get up and walk out quietly to make wudu again, perhaps no one notices. But even if they do, your reward with Allah is immense because you chose Him over your image. The fear of embarrassment should never outweigh the love for Allah's commands. That is why scholars emphasize that sincerity means doing what is right even when no one is watching, or even when everyone is watching and judging. There is a hidden beauty in obeying Allah secretly, in those little moments that seem minor to others, but are great in His eyes. Choosing to stop the prayer because your wudu broke is a moment of truth. It shows that your prayer was not a performance for people, but a sincere act of submission to Allah, even if it meant starting all over again. When a person experiences a break in their wudu during prayer, such as passing wind, interrupting the salah is not considered sinful or blameworthy in Islam. On the contrary, it becomes an obligation to stop at that point, because the condition of purity is no longer fulfilled. This act of stopping the prayer is actually an act of obedience and submission to Allah. Many people, especially in congregational prayers, might feel embarrassed or hesitant to walk away, fearing judgment from others around them. However, what truly matters is one's sincerity and commitment to fulfilling the command of Allah properly. Islam is a religion built on ease, truth, and clarity, and it never burdens a soul beyond its capacity. The moment a person realizes their wudu is invalid, continuing the prayer would no longer be considered valid worship. Instead, stopping the prayer becomes a demonstration of respect for the sacred nature of Salah. It's not about completing the motions. It's about standing before Allah in the state He has legislated. If a person were to continue praying in a state of impurity, that Salah would have to be repeated and it might not be accepted in the first place. Therefore, it is actually wiser, more rewarding, and spiritually correct to immediately pause, excuse oneself respectfully, perform wudu again, and return to prayer. There is no shame in doing what Allah loves. The Prophet taught his companions how to handle such situations with wisdom and dignity, and he never blamed anyone for leaving a prayer due to a valid reason. Islam promotes mindfulness and responsibility. When you break your prayer for the sake of following Allah's commands, you are not committing a sin. You are honoring your duty as a servant of Allah and preserving the sanctity of your worship. When a person breaks their wudu during Salah, the correct course of action is to immediately exit the prayer and perform ablution again before restarting. Wudu is not simply a ritual. It is a condition set by Allah for the validity of prayer. Without it, the Salah holds no weight, no matter how perfectly the physical actions are performed. Renewing wudu is a sign of submission to divine rules and an act of purification that prepares the heart and body to stand before the Almighty. The Prophet Muhammad emphasized the importance of purity before prayer, and the companions took this matter very seriously. If someone in the congregation experienced a break in their wudu, they would quietly step away, perform ablution, and rejoin or restart the prayer. There is no blame in doing so. In fact, it is a sign of taqwa, consciousness of Allah. Sometimes a person may be concerned about what others will think if they suddenly leave during prayer. But what truly matters is how Allah views your actions. If you break your prayer for His sake, to obey Him, you are earning reward, not shame. After completing wudu, it is necessary to begin the prayer from the beginning, as the previous one was invalid. Even if the prayer was almost finished, it has to be restarted once the state of purity is regained. Islam teaches that quality and correctness in worship are more important than rushing to complete something in an imperfect state. This also serves as a reminder that prayer is not a performance for people, but a deeply spiritual connection between the servant and his Allah. The effort to get up, purify oneself, and return to Salah with renewed focus is in itself an act of sincere devotion that Allah values greatly. One of the most beautiful aspects of Islam is how it teaches believers to handle even potentially embarrassing situations with wisdom, dignity, and calmness. When a person breaks their wudu during prayer, especially in a congregation, it can be uncomfortable to leave in the middle of Salah. People might worry about being noticed or judged by others. But the Prophet Muhammad, in his mercy and wisdom, taught ways to manage such moments respectfully. One of the practical teachings he gave was that if someone needs to leave the prayer due to an issue like breaking wudu, they can simply place their hand on their nose and walk out as if they have a nosebleed. This subtle action shifts attention away from the actual reason and maintains the person's dignity. It reflects the Prophet's deep concern for both the inner and outer well-being of his followers. Islam doesn't demand that we make announcements or explain ourselves publicly in such moments. It provides us with a graceful way out that maintains our respect in the eyes of others while allowing us to fulfill our religious obligations properly. Acting wisely and exiting calmly without drawing unnecessary attention, a person upholds both the etiquette of the congregation and the responsibility to Allah. This also serves as a reminder that modesty and consideration for others are core Islamic values. Handling such moments with quiet confidence shows strength of character and religious maturity. Rather than feeling embarrassed, a believer should feel proud that they are prioritizing their sincerity before Allah. When one obeys Allah with both humility and intelligence, Allah honors them in ways that people can never truly understand. Every step taken for the sake of Allah, even if it's a quiet walk out of prayer, is counted and rewarded with His mercy and love. In Islam, what truly matters is the sincerity behind our actions, not their outward perfection. When a person breaks their wudu during prayer and chooses to leave and perform ablution again before restarting, it might feel frustrating or even embarrassing. But in reality, this action is beloved to Allah because it reflects genuine devotion. Allah does not expect us to be flawless. He expects us to be sincere. Breaking your prayer and starting over may seem like a setback, but in the sight of Allah, it is a powerful testimony of your obedience. It shows that you care more about pleasing Him than about completing a ritual for the sake of appearances. The Prophet Muhammad taught us that Allah looks at our hearts and intentions. A prayer that is stopped because of broken wudu and then restarted with a pure heart is far more valuable than a prayer that is completed in a state of impurity. Even if nobody around you knows what happened, Allah knows. And He rewards that moment of truthfulness. The mercy of Allah is so vast that He even rewards the steps you take toward making wudu again. Every drop of water that falls from your limbs washes away sins and prepares you to stand before your Lord again. Instead of feeling ashamed, the believer should feel grateful for being given another opportunity to pray in the right state. Allah is not looking for flawless performance. He is looking for sincere hearts that try, fail, and try again. When you leave the prayer because your wudu broke and you return after purification, you are showing Allah that His command is more important than your comfort or image. That level of sincerity is what brings the pleasure of Allah. And that is more valuable than anything else. My dear brothers and sisters, the message is simple but deeply profound. Purity, sincerity, and obedience are the pillars upon which true worship stands. If your wudu breaks during Salah, it is not a disgrace to walk away. It is a sign of your truthfulness before Allah. Continuing prayer in a state of impurity may fool the people, but it does not reach the Lord of the world. True honor lies in following the commands of the one who created us, even if it means stepping out, cleansing ourselves again, and returning with renewed sincerity. The beauty of Islam is that Allah looks not at how perfect we appear, but at how honest we are in our efforts. Each time we choose Allah over ego, over embarrassment, and over convenience, we are winning in the sight of our Lord. So never be ashamed to walk away for His sake, because He will elevate you far higher than the eyes of people ever could. May Allah bless you with the strength to uphold His commands, with wisdom and humility. May your prayers be filled with light, your actions with sincerity, and your path with guidance. Stay strong, stay sincere, and never let the fear of people outweigh your love for the one who watches over you always. Thank you for listening, and may Allah accept from us all. Good luck on your journey toward greater closeness to Him. Jazakallah khairan.